Paul Struthers, Chief Executive of the PGA, joins us for the duration of Dundalk. This evening, before our previous race, we were talking about cocaine being a problem in society, saying we're talking about how much of a problem it is within racing, and you were keen going forward that we could do more hair samples. What's the difference?
So, urine samples, as your body processes drugs, they flush through the system, and after a period of time, depending on the drug and depending on all sorts of other factors within you, it just flushes through and it's gone. With hair, you get historical marker of usage. So the basic science is a centimetre of hair is a month in time. So the centimetre furthest from your scalp, I tend not to have this problem. The centimetre furthest from your scalp is the oldest centimetre. The centimetre nearest your scalp is the most recent one. So it shows a historic picture of use. Right. And once it's in your hair, it's not going anywhere.
Right. And that would be you're obviously on the PGA, you're saying that this going forward, Jerry Hill's keen to sort of prevent it and help jockeys.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry very much, he's very pastoral. As George, you'll know from obviously very different circumstances how involved he was in your recovery, and he takes that role in any jockey who's seriously injured and in hospital. On the kind of more pastoral front, so issues like this and drugs, alcohol related. Again, Jerry's not sat there in judgment. He doesn't want to be catching people. He wants to be helping people not test positive in the first place. So his interests are very much aligned with ours. But the hair sampling is very much Jerry's idea, supported by us. Because and we were discussing off, I really think it will be a deterrent to anyone in that moment where they're offered something that they shouldn't be taking, and we do not at all condone taking drugs from our members, and it's why we are completely supportive of 6-month bans when they're caught. But at the same time, those that are caught need an arm around them, need the support, which we will offer. And I think it will make a really big difference. And
it's time that you're in today, because there was a story broke today about Robbie Downey, who is success in his native Ireland. He's been based over in the north this year, riding for the likes of David O'Mara and David Byrne. He's tested positive in France. Yeah. Tell us the story.
So Robbie, he moved over from Ireland earlier this year. Robbie rode at Saint-Cloud on the 19th of June. He was selected, as I think pretty much all British jockeys are when they ride in France, selected for urine sampling. And then on the 30th of July, so quite some time afterwards, France Gallo wrote to him to say he tested positive for cocaine. He didn't actually receive that until the 5th of August, because they sent it to his old address in Ireland. Straight on to me was Robbie, absolutely adamant that he'd not taken cocaine. Now, it is changing increasingly. Jockeys who test positive for cocaine, the first thing they do is actually admit it now. And we've seen Kieran Schumacher admit it. We've seen William Carson admit it recently, and others. Robbie was absolutely adamant. And by the time he'd already called me, he's booked a hair sample at a lab across in Lancashire. And I said to him, look, Robbie, if you've done it, don't bother. Don't bother paying for a hair sample. It will show up and you're just wasting your money. But he paid for his hair sample. The results came back negative. The process in France takes quite a long time. He had his hearing last week and then found out yesterday that his hearing, he was found in breach, given a 6-month ban. France Gallo published that result on their website.
Did I read that he'd done a hair sample in England and France?
Yeah, so he did one here, and then he's working with a kind of jockey's advisor in France to deal with the French side of things, who said, look, you've got your hair sample in England, I'd advise you to get the hair sample done over here as well. So
that backdates 3 months, effectively?
Yeah, well, so the hair samples were all the way, he provided 5 centimetres of hair, so, he's not cut his hair since racing. He has been entirely open. Robbie, through us, we informed the BHA. The BHA found out about his positive sample in France from us, not France Gallo. The BHA have let him ride throughout because of the information we've been able to provide to them, the 2 negative hair samples. Now, unfortunately, the commissioners of France Gallo have ignored those hair sample results. They said it's in your urine, tough, 6 months, done. Now, some people would understandably say, well, if it's in his urine, he's done it.
That was going to be my next question. What can you...
In England and in Ireland and in lots of other jurisdictions, there is a cut-off point. So 150 nanograms per milliliter of urine is the cut-off. Anything below that will be returned negative.
Right.
And that's their screening cut-off. So they'll just kind of do an initial test on a sample. If it comes below 150, negative. The reason for that is to avoid false positives. And the European Workplace Drug Testing Society, they recommend any workplace drug testing regime operates that threshold. France don't. Their lab in France is WADA accredited, because racing doesn't operate within WADA rules. We have rules for safety for jockeys, not performance enhancement. So in competition, which this test was, WADA have no thresholds for cocaine because it's a stimulant, therefore it was potentially performance enhancing for an athlete. So theoretically, he could have tested as low as 5 nanograms. Now that is, I think, is it a billionth or a millionth of a gram? It is a tiny, tiny amount. When Robbie had his B sample tested, which he had to pay $900 to have done, he requested off France Gallo that they tell him what the levels of the metabolites of cocaine were in his urine, because they don't share them, France Gallo. He asked for it, they refused. So we have no idea how much is in his urine, but the 2 hair sample results would strongly suggest that Robbie has not taken cocaine.
Is this a similar case to Robert Havlin a few years ago?
It's similar. There are differences. For a start, Robbie's got 2 negative hair samples, and I think that is hugely important. We learnt a lot from Rab's case in how we handled it and how we advised Robbie. And the BHA learnt a lot, frankly, because Rab stood himself down. The BHA's position, if you test positive for cocaine, you're going to be stood down on the day you find out about that result.
Yeah.
And the BHA will get the result within 2 weeks and inform that jockey. We took the decision at the time with Rab. We thought the BHA were going to stand him down anyway. So we took the decision, let's voluntarily stand yourself down. I wish we hadn't done that, because it was 2 months before he was banned in France. They didn't offset that 2 months off the 6 months, so he was effectively banned for 8 months. And I think for anyone doubting Robbie's innocence, and I'll be the first to say, when a jockey tells you they haven't done something, doesn't mean they haven't done it, right? I get that. It's the same in any walk of life. These 2 hair samples, put Robbie's earnings into perspective. He's had 133 rides this year. And when you factor off all the deductions from his riding fees, the chunky percent that goes to his agent, things like that, he's probably earned 15 grand from race riding this year, yet has already spent £3,000 in the region of doing his hair sampling. You just don't do that. You don't waste your money doing that to prove your innocence, because it's that's really important for Robbie. Obviously, the potential that he's facing of 6 months of not being able to earn an income is huge for something he hasn't done. But it was as important for him to demonstrate, look, I'm not just someone who's saying I've not done it. I've not done it. No jockey has ever made public their hair sample results. Robbie's done it. So he will appeal in France. I don't want to prejudge the result of that appeal, but if that appeal loses, we'll immediately go to the BHA and ask them not to reciprocate the suspension.
Could this be, obviously there's massive racing in France, but it's happened before. Is this something that jockeys will think twice about going over there? Because is cocaine, is it true that, if you've kissed a girl, for example, who has taken cocaine?
Wasn't there a case with Stefan Pasquier recently?
Stefan Pasquier, and the big case in another sport was the French tennis player a few years ago. His name escapes me. Gasquet, Richard Gasquet. His defence was kissing a girl. The girl that he kissed, he knew. She provided a hair sample.
You don't kiss girls you don't know.
Her hair sample had cocaine in her hair month after month after month after month. And the ITF, so the International Tennis Federation, they banned Gasquet for 2 months, but WADA appealed. WADA said that's not enough. we want you to give a bigger penalty. They appealed to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and the Court of Arbitration for Sport upheld the ITF's decision. They said, no, he didn't do it. The source of cocaine was kissing. Now, Robbie's been asked what the source of cocaine was. He has no idea, but cocaine is everywhere. You see stories in the Racing Post when they've been at Ascot or they've been at Newmarket or any other racecourse and they're testing the tops of toilet cisterns and other places. It is on a lot of banknotes. It's one of the primary reasons that they've moved towards these new banknotes, these plastic banknotes, because it doesn't attach to those in the same way it attaches to the old cotton ones. There is a very real risk in France with their current testing regime and their processes for collecting the samples. You'll speak to a lot of jockeys, they are not robust. There is significant danger of false positives. I'm very, very confident this is a false positive, and we'll keep battling for Robbie to prove his innocence.
Yeah, watch the space, and I think going forward, George, then listen up, but the hair sampling has to be a positive, wouldn't it? More of a deterrent. You know, in a 3 months window, which is a big window, you can't do it.
Yeah, I'd be all for it. I don't know what George's view is.
For me, I think the one thing, if you have the hair sampling, if you've got a problem, you've got to address it because you can't ride. Yeah. The way the testing is at the moment, you can run around it a little bit, knowing that it's not that regular, and you can run the risk. If you get hair tested, there's just no. You won't be able to ride. It's simple. So you'll have to address the problem, and that's what the key thing which we want to encourage people to do is to realise that they've got a problem and to sort it out.
Yeah. And it may well be. I'll just type for time. It may well be when the hair testing comes in. Actually, if there's a historic marker of cocaine use in your hair, we don't know yet because it's not been decided. But it may well be that there's not even a sanction as such. So you're not banned by the BHA. There might be a period of time where they can't ride, where they go through an education process and have any support through the PJA that they need if they've got an issue, which is what they do in other sports. They have social drugs policies in cricket and in rugby, where actually your first cocaine positive, you won't even get banned for. I don't think we wouldn't want that over here. My members wouldn't want it. We wouldn't want it. It does deserve a ban. This is a real safety issue. Jockeys don't want to be riding, do they, against other jockeys with stuff in their system. They just don't. But I think we need to really deter it. But equally, those that have a problem or those that have done it, they need to be encouraged to come forward and offered the support that they need.
Okay.